Sometimes we think of a certain type of music as being fundamentally linked to a particular place, a centre of gravity. The reality is often much more complex and can involve a tangled knot of history, of contested ownership and reinterpretation. Jazz is sometimes referred to as the only true American art form. Whether or not that's true, there's no question that New York City remains a powerful centre of gravity for jazz musicians from around the world. Grammy Award winner Linda Mahan O was born in Malaysia and grew up in Perth, a city on the far western edge of the continent, renowned as one of the most isolated in the world. A jazz double bassist and vocalist, after studying and gigging in Australia, Linda was inevitably drawn to New York City, to that imagined centre, to play and learn like so many before her. She's now been based in New York for over 15 years, and she's rightly revered among her peers as a composer, player, and collaborator. The life of a musician's often in perpetual motion, so despite her New York base, Linda works and performs around the world, constantly making new artistic connections and absorbing new ideas and influences. For this project though, Linda's chosen to return to Western Australia for the Perth Festival, where she'll perform with a band drawn from her various local and global connections. The work's a reflection on the ephemeral, transient nature of things, fitting for a music that springs from improvisation and for a composer whose life is constantly on the move.
1, 2, 3, 4. So I've always been fascinated by percussion instruments. I have never written for percussion before, specifically for these mallet percussion instruments, for all these different timbres. It was something I was really excited to explore.
I was in an ensemble called Tetrified Percussion with Steve and Ian, and Linda would see us performing all the time. And then she got in touch and said, would you like to do this project? Are you still in that band? I've always remembered that band.
I basically only met her when I came back to Perth during COVID when I was pregnant. And from that grew a musical relationship, and I asked her, what would you think about putting together some sort of ensemble, including percussion trio with piano, bass and drum set.
It's been a really exciting chance to get Ian and Steve and I back together, but also to work with Linda, which has been magic.
And from that, this project grew. And over the past year and a half or so, I've been slowly writing and putting everything together. And it's been really incredible learning about all these different instruments. A lot of the pieces I wrote when I was in New York City, and so we've been workshopping it remotely. I've been sending music back and forth, and through Zoom calls I've been asking Steve Richter, Genevieve Wilkins and Ian Robbie questions about the percussion instruments and should I be writing things this way.
She's been really curious musically about exploring some different things that we're all into and we've worked on, and then she's made her ideas and sent a few things at a time, and we worked on it here and sent it over as a video with an audio recording, and she's done the same in New York and sent it back, and it's been a real two-way, and I wasn't sure how that would work. Would we feel rushed when we finally got together? And we haven't at all. It's felt really embedded to bring the two together.
I wrote this specifically for these musicians and what they've been interested in and what they've been influenced by. So it was a huge learning curve to not only learn about writing these instruments, but about these specific musicians themselves and what works best with this group. So, so I think that's important, that connection between the actual musicians, not just the instruments that you're writing for.
It's very rare someone writes for percussion and thinks about giving you time to pick up a stick, or how could you possibly play all those notes and how would you put that together and things like that. That's really rare, and putting markings in scores as well.
Yeah.
Life has been very busy for us. We have a 2-year-old son now, so if I give a real answer, it's been pretty hectic. As we play the music more in the room, we're learning more about each other's instruments and see how we can all work together and vibrate the room. But it's come together beautifully. Not only is it her dedication to the music, but also the dedication of the musicians here that have really brought to life what she was imagining.
Yeah, no, I think it's more like that. It's like the strings just get super.
So as far as actually writing and scoring for the ensemble, I do have moments for improvisation for all the members. Fabian, myself and Ben have played together quite a bit in various trio contexts, so we know each other pretty well. With the other percussionists, I have certain pieces allocated where they can have their moment, you know, especially in the first movement, Strangers. It's kind of an introduction. I'm not playing in that movement, and neither is Fabian, so it's really introducing the percussion players and their voices. So you get to really hear them improvise and trade with each other and converse, you know, with their instruments.
Well, the instrumentation is very unique, I think. A lot of drums, a lot of metals, like the sound of metal, which, I mean, I guess you could argue that a trumpet and a saxophone are metal, but, you know, it's a wind instrument. So there's a very wide range of dynamics. There's a very wide range of timbre, and the pitch spectrum is very wide. So, yeah, and there's something very primal about percussion instruments. I think the human voice and percussion, those are the two things that I think of that have been around as long as human beings have been around.
Percussion 1, percussion 3, and then bass. So Ian, Genevieve, Steve, and then me. Being a composer or a leader of a band, I feel that I want to take more responsibility. You know, I've written this music, and these wonderful people have put so much time and effort into learning this music that it's my responsibility to take charge when I need to, but also let the music breathe and let the musicians contribute their strengths.
So I thought, okay, well, it'll be quite jazz orientated. It's got jazz elements in improvisation, of course, but it's actually more contemporary classical in that sense. It's kind of a marrying of everything that I've been doing for the past couple of decades as well. Coming from classical into jazz, and now we've got the best of both going on.
The whole overall arch of the Ephemeral Echoes just has, for me, possibilities of it could go in any direction.
I vaguely remember talking to her about it a few years ago, but we're both very sleep deprived. Yeah, it's just the fleeting nature of existence and life, I think. I mean, you'd have to ask her.
How many possibilities of otherworldly, reflective options within it?
Essentially, this is a collection of pieces about transience and things that are not permanent. And basically, everything in this world is not permanent, you know. There's a degree of uncertainty as to how long things will last.
As an artist, it's also beautiful to not really think entirely about the meaning of things and just listen to the sound of it. And I think the word ephemeral is something that, I don't know if it's imagined or not, but there's a sound to it. It's got a thing, it's got a vibe.
Each movement is about something specific that has been important to me in my life, and a moment, you know, and I encourage the audience to be in that moment with me, because you don't often realize you're in that moment until it's gone, you know. So I have a movement that dedicated to my son in 2 parts that is basically referencing, you know, his moment coming into this earth and him thriving and blooming. You know, it's, everybody always says it goes like that, and it really does. Aurora Borealis when I was in Reykjavik in Iceland, and we happened to stumble across it after a show, you know, and it was just a really glorious, beautiful moment. There is one movement that's it's a little bit more literal in the sense that it's about ephemeral objects and about planned obsolescence and the problems that come with companies that employ that tactic of planned obsolescence, and it's called the Phoebus Cartel, and it's about the light bulb cartel in the 1920s that mandated that light bulbs only last up to 1,000 hours, even though there's still a light bulb in California that's been glowing for 100 years. So it's about reflecting on our footprint as human beings and how important is that, you know, the marketing aspect and selling, and what is the impact of that on us and on the world that we live in, you know. So that's Ephemeral Echoes.